not everything found on oak trees is a purple hair streak egg, of which there is one actually just behind me on one of the thin branches. During the course of today's video, you're going to be hearing the word pennella quite often, actually, incredibly often, because there are two species of Coleophora. The moths, the adult moths, are identical. You can't tell them apart unless you've got a microscope, a steady hand and a scalpel. However, the moths can be told apart by their larval cases, or at least while their larval cases are very young. And it's quite an interesting and quite unique way of how you can tell the two species apart, even though the larval cases are identical this time of year. They're also a bit small, but with a bit of patience and a bit of effort, you can find them, one species, quite easily. Very windy here in Sherwood Forest at the moment, but at least it's dry on this pleasant and mild Sunday morning. But the two moths in question today are both Coleophoras, a family of moths which are notoriously difficult to identify to species, at least from the adult. Very few can, and so the majority of Coleophora that land in most people's traps aren't identified at all. They're just tossed aside in the "they can't be done" category. But these two species, despite having chestnut coloured forewings, can be identified. Not in the adult moth stage. You still need a microscope, a scalpel and a very steady hand in order to cut them up and determine what sex they are and what species they are. The larval cases are also identical, although it's said that the full-grown larval case can be told from one from the other. I can't see it myself, even though I reared both species thanks to Nick and Samantha Brownley's help at the beginning of this year. The larval cases, when full-grown, are about 7 millimeters in length, and surprisingly it's much easier to identify the larval cases, despite them being identical, when they're about 2 to 3 millimeters long, which they are at this time of year, and one of them is behind me. What makes them identifiable at this time of year during the overwintering period is the location in which they decide to spend the winter. Now brace yourself, because you're going to hear the word pennella a lot during the course of this video. Pennella makes up part of the species name of both moths. One is Coleophora flavipennella and one is Coleophora lutipennella. So don't get your pennellas crossed. But I mentioned that it's location of where the larva overwinters that is key and to the identification of these moths, despite the adults being visually identical. One species overwinters tucked in the axil of a bud, the bud of oak. Sometimes it's tucked right in between a group of buds, and you can occasionally find 2 or 3 at the same cluster of buds. The other species overwinters at the joint of 2 twigs, very much in the manner of Coleophora annatipennella that was featured a few weeks ago that was on blackthorn. But in the centre of the picture here, you may well have already seen, while I was waffling on, the larval case of Coleophora lutipennella. Told you it was windy. Despite the fact that the cases are identical, the location is crucial. Like the television programme, location, location, location. And that makes these two species, despite their identical natures, easy to tell apart. It's as something that you can go out and do during the winter months. You can probably add a new species or two to your local patch. I have records of Coleophora luteopinella on my local patch at Equin, and indeed I found a number of cases yesterday when I had a quick look. I've yet to find Flavipinella, but in Nottinghamshire, Flavipinellas are a much more difficult beast to track down. I will be having a look during the course of this video, but if I don't manage to track the larval case down, we will be looking at lots of photographs, which I may put in anyway. But there you can see the case of Coleophora luteopinella tucked in where there was a leaf. It's on a leaf scar, but close to the buds. And this one is quite large actually. This one is a good maybe 3.5 millimeters in length. They can be much smaller, but it's that pale nature that you can see towards the back end of the case that makes them stand out when they are fixed in a cluster of buds. And here's the situation that you'll most likely find the case of Coleophora luteopinella in, tucked in the axil of the buds there, right at the base of the buds. And you get an added bonus with this, because there's the one you can see obviously, and there's another tucked right in, distinctly pale, and that's what makes them stand out. And quite commonly you can find a couple, occasionally three, within close proximity, but tucked right at the base of the buds. Well, I've been unable to find any larval cases of Coleophora Flavipinella while I've been walking around Clipston Old Quarter here in Sherwood Forest. But I've put a number of photos in now to illustrate the differences. And the only difference is in the placement or the overwintering location that the larva of each species chooses. In this instance, with two larval cases tucked in the axils of these buds of oak, are the larvae of Coleophora luteopinella, which does seem to be the commonest species, at least here in Nottinghamshire. The other one, the one I didn't find, is Coleophora Flavipinella, and that larva overwinters at the junction of two twigs. And that's the one, say, unfortunately I couldn't find today. It seems as though I might have to do a lot more walking around and legwork and looking, but it passes the time on, and it would be nice to find and get some more records of Coleophora Flavipinella in Nottinghamshire. At the moment, as far as I'm aware, we've only got 3 or maybe 4 modern records. It's something you can go and do over the Christmas period again while you're off work. Walk off those excesses and have a look for 2 identical larval cases which are not identical in their choice of overwintering positions. You wouldn't have thought such a little difference could make 2 species, 2 identical species, identifiable.